Well, been doing suspension probably since the beginning of the 90s, you know. It was 1991 probably we started doing our own stuff, and then carried on and was literally just doing our own stuff, you know, because we were racing. And then in the 90s, Scott started doing a few rides for British Championships and that. And then since then, yeah, I've kind of taken over with it, and yeah, I mean it's been really good. I've been like working with Honda and Dave Falk and that for like since 2015 now, and we've won some good championships. Like pretty much won a British title of some kind or another every year I've been with them. So yeah, really good. Really, it's nice, isn't it? It's to go out with fast guys and do some testing and get some feedback, you know, and see what they want and what they think of it. You know, I like all that, you know. It's that's sort of the sharp end of it all, you know, and that's the fun bit of it for me. Basically, I try not to change my bike too much from standard, mainly because, you know, the average guy who's buying a bike's got pretty much a standard bike to ride. You know, they don't normally have a lot of options or loads of money to spend on trying to make things exactly how they want them. So I try and keep my bike pretty stock, and then do little things, you know, to try and make it better. And obviously I do a lot of work with suspension. That's the main thing. You know, completely changing valve stacks and settings, and the same with the shock. You know, forks and shock. Well, it's £360 plus any parts. So obviously, if you don't need parts or springs, then it's just that much, and that's forks and shock. That's the full job, yeah. All revalved. And then the engine, pretty much. You know, I play around with the mapping, just so to make it cheaper, so people can come in and they can get their bike remapped and you know, get a better power curve without having to spend a lot of money on an electric box. The most important thing for me is I just ride the bike standard. You know, it comes out and however it is, and I just literally set the sag and go out and ride it, and then start from there. And then straight away by riding it, you know, you get a feeling for whether the fork's too hard or too fast, or, you know, too slow or too soft. You know, or whereabouts they're too hard. You know, high up, low down. You know, and then you just start from there really, and you start coming up with working on your shim stacks. You know, and obviously over the years you get the experience, you kind of know what's going to work, and then yeah, pretty quickly you can get it dialed, and yeah, and you go out and try it, and then you see what it's like, and then you might be like, oh, it's still a little bit like this or like that, and so then you come back and change it again, and then try it again, and it's just a process like that really. And I mean, now I think I'm on maybe my third fork setting and my second shock setting, so, you know, already we're just doing little things all the time, and just getting it better and better, getting the balance good. And like now, I mean, the bike's really good. Obviously I'm working with Dave and the Honda team and people like that, and, you know, and you have got settings for them, and yeah, they're normally quite a bit harder than what you'd be running for the average guy. Yeah. You know, so you kind of have to work out what's right for different levels as well. And yeah, I mean, there's no point in like me putting the settings in that Jake and people use, you know, because it would be too hard for them. So obviously you have to like do a compromise and do a slightly plusher, softer feel for the average guy, you know. Well, first off, I mean, I need to know the weight, and then straight away once I've got the weight, you know, then I know what springs to get. And pretty much springs, I mean, they kind of go on weight mainly, not really on speed. So you need the right weight springs for your weight, and that's essential. And then after that, I mean, pretty much the setting, you know, it's depending on what bike it is and how the feeling of the bike is, you know, you change the setting accordingly. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if without changing the setting inside, there's no point in just changing the springs a lot of times. I mean, sometimes it works, but I've found that really it's about getting the setting right, and then the right spring, and you know, the right sag. I mean, everything makes a difference. You know, you could even have the best revalve suspension out there, but if you've got the sag set wrong, like 5mm too high, you know, and the clicker's set wrong, then it won't be any good. So it's all about getting the whole thing right, you know. With the Hondas, the clickers are really sensitive actually. Like one click you can really feel it. You know, and then obviously what normally happens is you know, you try riding with standard stuff and you end up, for instance, like on one of these with, you know, the rebound wound all the way in and like the low speed all the way out and the high speed in, then you sort of like know what you got to do to the shock inside to make it right, you know. And
Yeah.
That's the kind of way you can sort of go about it. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but that's the starting point. I mean, the first thing you look for is balance.
Yeah.
I mean, front to rear. I mean, you can tell that pretty much straight away by hitting jumps, you know, and that's the first thing you want. And just hitting bumps in the corners, you want to balance, and that's the first thing you got to look for. And then after that, you know, it's like, you know, you just know when it's not right. You know, you can't settle into the corners, for instance, or you know, or you're just feeling too many bumps. But you're right, you do need to feel some bumps. I mean, you can't go around and have it like you say, so you feel nothing, because the bike's just going to be way too soft. And if you're ever in any muddy conditions or any big jumps, you come up short. You know, it's gonna hurt. So, and also it's not predictable when it's like that. You know, you don't feel anything. It's all good, and then the next minute you're laying down the track going, what happened? Because you know you got into that big hole too much and it bottomed out and fired you off it. It's like, so you do need to feel stuff 100%, and for sure if you don't feel anything with the front end, then you can't go quick, because you've got no purchase with the front tyre. You know, you've got no front end traction, so you have to have pressure into the ground to go fast, and with that, you know, you're going to feel some bumps. And some people don't like a kick, they like to go in and get on the gas, you know, and other people, you know, they like a more stiff rear end, like you say, can use that last bump to go, you know, and set themselves up and get on the gas, and then also maybe with the shock a little bit harder, you can use more bumps to jump other bumps, you know, whilst if you've got it too soft, you know, it kind of wants to just ride through everything, and, you know, but it's just techniques, you know, so people ride differently as well, you know, some people ride with their head more over the front, and then other people sit down more with their foot out more further back, so their settings are going to be different, you know. From my experience, you know, as a rider, you know, normally what you want from your suspension is predictability. You know, you want it to be predictable and consistent, and it might not always be the best on certain bumps, but you know what it's going to do on that bump, and you know what, you know, to pick the wheel up and shut the throttle for that one particular bump. And guess what? If that's like 1 or 2 bumps a lap and the rest of the track it's good, then that's what you want. You know, you've got to have something that you know what's going to happen, and it's consistent and it's the same every lap, and also something that you can get on and just concentrate and ride the track. You know, and you're not making mistakes. You know, and you can think about going fast. That's what you need to be looking for, not necessarily what you can do the fastest lap on always, or the hardest stuff you can jump the furthest on, but you just want the stuff that, you know, it's there, lap in, lap out. You know, you can have, you know, no kicking in the corners and not as good drive, or you can have a little bit of kicking in the corners and then a better drive out the corner, and you know, it's always a trade-off. You know, you can never have everything with suspension. You have to work out what you want, and then that's it. You know.